afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Yes? So we have a very interesting panel on water conservation, but I must just, again, just congratulate Misha, wherever she is, Misha and Ashti, for really putting such an interesting theme together. We've seen one session on master planning for Bombay. We've seen one very interesting session on collaboration, international collaboration by means of textiles. And now today we're talking about water conservation. Any architects in the house? How many architects in the house? Okay, how many product designers? Product designers? Landscape architects? Landscape architects, yeah. From the practicing architects or designers, how often do you typically talk about water conservation? Is conserving water an important part of your process? Yes, show of hands. Okay, so we already know that water conservation is an important part of building, of product design, of landscape architecture, of any part of, especially when you're building public projects or even projects that encourage and embrace scale, right? So the idea of this conversation is that we are aware that water conservation is important, but then how do we use design as a responsibility towards championing water conservation efforts better? So the reason why we also have people from different experiences is to talk about that from that perspective, right? So I encourage you to please have your questions ready because we do have Ranjeet who works with Kohler, who is instrumental in leading the corporate strategy in terms of ensuring that while conservation is important, design also is a seamless language. We have Kunal, who's talking about not only landscape architecture, but important aspects of planning for scale. And we also have Sonali, who you already are aware of Morphogenesis work, right? In terms of how they are able to work across projects, but water sensitivity is an important part of the process. So maybe I'm going to start with Sonali. Could you maybe talk about how are you able to approach water sensitivity, how important it is for you, no matter what project you take on?
Thank you, Sneha. So, because I work across diverse scales, from very small buildings, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, to 7.5 million square meters. Right. So, water conservation takes place for me right at the conceptualization level. At a micro level, at the building, simple things that we all know. We recycle as much water as possible. It goes back into the flushing system. We take as much water into the ground. I mean, those are things we are taught in college and we know. But more than that is to understand that there is an immediate project level water concern. Then let's see how we live. Like, for example, I live in Delhi. And every monsoon, it floods, and water comes into all the basements, and good homes get destroyed, products get destroyed. There's a loss of material, and then again it happens next year. And so we have to also understand that with this kind of urban sprawl that we are facing, the microsystems don't connect to the macro systems.
Right.
Our stormwater drains are dysfunctional. They haven't been upgraded from when they were made, and also we are still relying on the fact that all of Delhi's stormwater drains should go to travel open across Delhi and go to the Yamuna.
Right.
And which is not actually possible. But there is nothing between the micro and the macro. There isn't, for example, where I live, Panchsheel as a community, there is no community water harvesting. There is no creation of, let's say, a water body or a lake, I mean, which is essentially a big retention reservoir. So somewhere in the expansion, we've lost the local community level water management.
Right.
And we either do micro or we plan macros that fail.
Right, yeah. Speaking of micro and macro level organization, Kunal, do you want to also talk about how you approach it even from a micro perspective? Remember in our conversation you were talking about that Kutch building where you incorporated a certain strategy. Could you talk about how you go from a macro to a micro level of ensuring water sensitivity?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. This was something Sneha and I, we did a Zoom call with the rest of the panel. And we did a case study long time back when I was in college of a rehabilitated area in
Right.
a slum community. And what really touched my heart was a very simple example of there was one privileged family who had an air conditioner in the slum areas. And the homemaker of the property actually took that effort of connecting an air conditioning pipe so that the residue of the water can actually get connected to a water loving plant. And I found that idea so exciting. And
Right.
apart from it being exciting, the very thought of wanting to use that water, the residue water, to nurture a plant was a very thought-provoking and an emotional sentiment for me. So I thought that it's always nice. Sometimes, you can't solve big problems in your lives, but, smaller things also accumulated together help resolve or change the mindset of somebody to look at perspectives in a different way, I would say.
Right, yes, absolutely. Speaking about perspectives and speaking about, a people-centric way of not necessarily preaching to the choir, but Kohler is already consciously incorporating conservation as part of the design philosophy of the brand. Could you perhaps talk about why is it not really a prerogative to include that in a narrative, right? Because again, I think all of us can agree that while water conservation is important, we do take it for granted. So could you maybe talk about how are you consciously addressing that through your brand narrative?
Sure. So I'm going to keep my discussion today not so much on the effort that we are doing in
Sure.
terms of ensuring that the water reservoirs around our plants, etc., are refilled, and we are doing what it takes to be able to ensure that our footprint
Yeah,
is minimized, and the water tables where we operate are something that we truly care about, not just for saying it, but
yeah,
it's a business imperative also.
right,
Having said that, I think today's discussion, the piece that I want to focus on is this entire approach of saying, versus trying to then get back water, why don't we just flush less down the toilet?
right,
Right?
yeah,
Because if you're using less, then you're going to need to refill less. That's the approach. I think to the question that you're raising right now, the reality is that there is a lot of awareness that exists for this topic, but I don't think the consumers have moved to the point where they are saying, I'm willing to pay extra
right,
for this. While there are a very few set of consumers that you'll see, most of the consumers expect the companies to actually take care of that.
right, yeah,
And so the approach that we are taking is that we don't want to use it as a marketing campaign, but we want to use it as something that pushes us on the technology and innovation side.
right,
And the product team has been tasked with the entire mandate of saying, every year I want the amount of water that I need to create, let's say, a flush, to go down by 10%. We've already been able to get it down to a 3.6 liter, and historically it used to be 6 liters. So think about every bathroom in a year flushing down 12,000 liters less than what it did before.
right,
And that's a meaningful change.
right, absolutely.
And that's something that needs to come across in every part of the design philosophy that we have. So that's what we need to incorporate. We need to take the onus as companies to say that we will invest in innovation that is going to ensure that we use less.
Right, absolutely. Speaking of investment in innovation and technology, I'm going to ask both Kunal and Sonali to talk about how you've been able to work with innovation and with technology in some way to integrate water conservation efforts. Like for instance, Sonali, I was reading up about your project, the Lotsi Community Project for Forest Essentials, for example. It was a conscious effort to integrate a tailored rainwater harvesting system. You've integrated water management, and it includes, conscious efforts like shading, like orientation, high thermal mass. So you have worked on that blueprint from the beginning. There is innovation in some way. Could you perhaps highlight how you were able to come about that?
So water is one component of sustainability. And if the whole thing is not thought of, the whole project is not thought of sort of a live, living organism, then just saying we'll deal with water is perhaps not going to achieve the maximum result. So, and here I want to talk about not this small project, because small projects are easier to handle. I want to talk about Surat Diamond Bourse, which is a very large project. It's the world's largest office building, 7.1 million square meters. Now, if one could just imagine the amount of water required to air condition this building. Now, through a very simple innovation called radiant cooling, we managed to not air condition 60% of the total area. And it's a closed loop system with only a little bit of top up of water required, which comes out of the recycled flushing matter. So there is no water for 55 to 60% of the building required for air conditioning. So, and these are radiant cooling pipes which are embedded in the floor gets cooled, and we walk close to the floor, so the lower level of air where human beings are gets cooled, and there is no air conditioning. And it's not a per se vernacular type of building, it's a world-class A-grade building. And 60% of it has no air conditioning of the typical type, yet it's a 100% air-conditioned building. So this is where I felt very proud of, as a Morphogenesis team, being able to really contribute, not in a mini way, but if the world's largest building can function like that, then why can't all buildings function like that?
Fair.
After that, I've done the same thing with Infosys at Nagpur. And 80% of the building works on radiant cooling, no air conditioning, therefore no water. And it works out of recycled flushing water, the whole building. And IT companies can work like that. So I think it's a mindset change that is required. Radiant cooling wasn't invented by me. It's always existed. It's a very simple system, and it's what is used in the Western world to heat the floors. We did exactly that, cooled the floors. So I think it's just acceptance of the alternatives.
Sure.
Which is, I think, what most of the design community needs to drive down.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that example, actually, because it is one of the largest commercial buildings in the world, the largest commercial building in the world. And for you to address that challenge head on is quite commendable.
And also
yes.
cost, like you talked about cost.
Right.
So
Yeah.
because of this innovation and a couple of others, this 100% air conditioning A-grade building was made at 4,100 rupees a square foot, all inclusive.
That's amazing.
And that would have been typically at least 1.5 times this price.
That's really efficient. You're attacking multiple challenges in one go, including cost. What about you, Kunal? Can you talk about understanding your work as well, right? Were you able to find a balance between reincorporating indigenous practices as well as innovation and technology in some way? Or do you see traditional practice as innovation as one in your large-scale projects? Yeah.
Over the past few years, what we've been doing is, of course, the word innovation means new, but I feel it's about resurfacing the old traditional methods.
True, yeah.
And I'll give you a simple example. I was just off late after COVID doing a project in Chennai. And it was my first, so I just wanted to see how do people landscape there. And I went to a client's friend's home, and it was a courtyard-built home. And it was so beautiful. It had one tamarind tree, it had one moringa tree, it had lots of jasmine growing there, and some lemongrass. And I just seemed to ask the homeowner that, how is it so traditional and vernacular, and you have a modern setting? And she told me that this is how exactly things were grown previously, because they make rasam and sambar using tamarind and moringa, and the jasmine is used to offer flowers to the god and also make your gajra. So everything is contained within that system. And we have now evolved into growing olive trees in our country. And we spend 10x buying those kind of trees, which don't even belong to our country. So for me, innovation is just about going back to the traditional roots as much as possible, and probably taking it up from there. Like even as Sonali said, that drip irrigation system, not wanting to name any brand, always existed. There were earthenware pots that were made with small holes and kept next to a tree and fed with water every morning so that the birds could also drink water from them, but at the same time there was a symbiotic activity of nurturing the tree with that water also.
Yeah.
So these were practices. I think we should just accept the fact that what our traditional roots were, if we bring them back to the surface, we, we are on the path of sustainability and conservation.
Right, absolutely. We won't be able to have this conversation if we don't address two important aspects. I think now, I mean, we have addressed process, we have addressed design, but I think two important things to talk about is one, collaboration, right? Where we need to, in order to implement these efforts, it's important to get the support of the decision makers, policy makers, whether it's a product company, whether it's architecture, whether it's building for a larger purpose. So I want to understand from you, I'll come to the second topic a little later, but it'll be good to understand from each one of you, how do you see the importance of collaboration with larger decision makers, with policy makers, as imperative to larger water conservation, more conscious and sustaining water conservation efforts? I mean, anyone, this is open to all of us, yeah.
I think I'll just give my quick two
Sure.
cents on this one. I think creating a common language that a consumer understands for
Right.
products that are using less water. And I know there is a standard that is there, but it's not as clearly defined, it's not as clearly communicated to the consumers, is probably one of the most important things to take that forward.
Right.
But on a collaboration piece, I think one of the things that we are learning right now is that we shouldn't just operate like a product company.
Sure.
We should
yes.
operate like a part of the entire community that is delivering elevated living experiences.
Right.
At the same time, connecting to all the technologies that are available, the designers that are working, the different other product categories that we don't operate in. Because all of these come together to be able to deliver an experience which is still right from a water conservation point of view. So
Absolutely.
that's where I think collab is needed.
Absolutely. Kunal or Sonali, yeah? What
Yeah,
about your
so,
perspective here? Yeah.
So I think seeing what happened to Gurgaon, seeing what happened to Bangalore,
Yeah.
I think the problem, we can keep making products, we can keep making buildings which are more efficient, but if the basis of urban migration is relying on filling up lakes to create new land for development and removing all catchments, then there is no getting around that. Any amount of water saving or flushing or saving on air conditioning
Yeah.
is not going to work if the catchments which are natural to the topography of the land and have for years worked. It's a cycle. There is a certain amount of rain in an area, hence a certain amount of lakes develop.
Right.
And then the rain continues. We talk about climate change, but we fill up the lakes, and then we say flooding,
Yeah.
and then that excess water can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Then we say now let's clean up the Yamuna.
Yeah.
So it's a already lost battle.
We are trying to solve for problems we've created.
So I think, for example, there
Exponentially.
should be a national water map. I mean, we
Yeah.
can now say that this ASI monument with little 2 dundis of stone coming out of the ground, please don't build 100 meters from
Right,
it.
right.
But we cannot say don't fill up a lake and
Yeah.
make the next township.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I think that there is a complete apathy and absence of a national water map and national water policy.
Yeah.
And unless that is put into place, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't make the efforts that we do. That is at an individual level, at a company level, at a design level, at a landscape level, we have to. But I think there needs to be a rebellion and a revolution about where is our water, where does it sit, and how is it being handled as a nation.
Yeah. Absolutely. Kunal, what about you and your perspective?
I would love to collaborate with the city civil council on a micro or a macro level, and I have a wish that every vertical building made, it should be mandatory to have a terrace garden which is sustainable on the top. I mean, we literally have everything going. They want to create podium level gardens, but nobody wants to touch a terrace level garden only due to leakage issues and things like that. They don't want to grow trees. But can you visualize on a helicopter view, if you were to see a high-rise city like Mumbai, which is fully green, And then, of course, you have the blue tarpaulin of the slums. But it would be such a joy just to see the whole space green that way. I think that would be a very good collaboration to have.
Yeah. Maybe, like our version of a Bosco Verticale. But that might not be, given in a city like Bombay, the climate situations, that might not be possible. But maybe, if every certain rooftop had a certain level of roof gardening experience, sure, doable, hopefully. I'm going to get into another sticky territory, which is construction. Anyone from any developers here in the house, anyone with experience with development or construction? Or maybe they do not want to reveal themselves. But I think all of us agree that, and we know of this, right? Construction is one of the most, it takes up 10% of the total amount of water consumed, right? And it is a tricky subject. Even though our solutions are towards building, we are building but also consuming a lot of water. So it is a vicious circle at the end of the day. How do we address complex challenges like these where we are tackling construction at a conscious level, but then how do we temper our expectations of consumption? Anyone, yeah, it's open to everyone, yeah. I know this is something that we do not get an opportunity to discourse, which is why, again, collaboration matters. We are making for the purpose of a higher demand, of growing, of people moving, of immigration, but we are not actively addressing scarcity even at the building level. So how do we do that consciously?
So I think for me, there are a couple of points that are important. One is there is a requirement for us and something that can really help if we get a lot more modular in the space of construction.
Sure.
Okay. Usage of material that is going to be a lot more water conscious, and ensuring that that particular piece, because innovation again in the field of construction is something that needs to be taken care of. Modular approach to construction is one way in which you can do that, and use of alternate materials. That's the second one that you can look at. But it needs to be taken seriously by the entire industry.
Absolutely. Again, it has to be taken seriously by the industry as well as decision makers.
And I think,
yeah.
So we are trying to do that in some space, at least from our category point of view.
Yeah.
And we have a few people that we are working with to be able to come back with concepts that are going to help.
Yeah.
But that needs to be literally at the design stage. It has to start from design stage, as well as at a promoter level, they have to say that this is the final design that I need.
Yeah.
It can't come as an afterthought that, I'm going to build out something and then there's a plan made out and then trying to retrofit in. So I think that's an important collab.
So I think I'd like to add to this that sustainability cannot be just thought of as sustainability. It has to also be thought of along with the word called optimization. So, of course, we have to use resource in order to build. But how to optimize that resource is something that must be thought of right from the production level of the material. Second is repurpose, recycle, reuse. So if material already exists, then just to simply send it to landfill is the biggest problem. So landfill itself is a problem. So I think I am trying at a firm level to say different kinds of projects. Let's say it's an interiors project. So we'll say we'll use 20% of all product has to be reused or recycled product.
Right.
Similarly, I know certain brick making companies are now in the process of making mandates like that for the content of the brick. So similarly, I think the entire construction industry, if it moved to declaring a certain amount of reusable or first recycled, then reusable content.
Right.
That itself will have optimized the resource at a fundamental level even before design begins. So of course, then optimization through design is the next step. Right. But the material itself has got optimized, and the project target, like we have learned to target the very American way, lead gold, lead platinum, this, that, or the other.
That's right.
Why don't we target that 20% of the project will be from recycled material and 40% of it will be recyclable and reusable, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, targets can be different, can be varying, can be depending on the nature of the typology.
But maybe like a checklist of, say, a certain kind of material, a
Exactly.
certain level of technology.
I mean, instead of putting a Leeds platinum plaque in front of the building, what if we could put up how much of this building has come out of recycled material?
Perhaps for the next project, that could be your next prerogative. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. One more thing, and that's something that, Kunal, if you remember, you had addressed through our conversation, is, how water conservation as a process is not addressed in education. Maybe not actively so across the board, not maybe in many schools. Maybe some of the architects here can perhaps share that. But if you had the opportunity, again, this is for everyone, from a product design perspective, from an architecture perspective, from a landscape perspective, what do you think should be included as part of the curriculum in order to consciously consider conservation as an effort?
I think a lot has been spoken, taught, heard about water conservation. A very important and a key aspect that gets forgotten, I think, whilst we are getting ourselves educated, is the study of entomology, which is study
Yes.
of birds, bees, insects, pests. And I think that goes a long way. I mean, we do so much research on so many things like what helps, what kind of strata helps conserve water, but seldom do we know that the things like centipede, millipedes, earthworms, whom we try to use chemicals and kill, they actually help conserve water. And till you don't have insight into that, how are you going to help holistically close the entire ecosystem? So I think study of the ecosystem in architectural colleges, at least a subject for one semester or something, will help open up minds.
I think right from kindergarten, it should be a subject. Environmental science should be a subject which should be taught from kindergarten.
So actually, my experience there is that we have a lot to learn from the kids now. If you see in most houses, it's the kids who are telling you to switch off the tap even faster than what you are, because that's becoming a part of what they are being taught or what they are taking as something which is important. And to me, any of this will start actually becoming mainstream when people are willing to pay for it.
Absolutely.
Or are willing to make an active choice on things that they buy or places that they buy or people that they hire basis this topic. The moment that starts happening, that's where the scale will hit it. So I'm extremely optimistic that the next generation is going to shake us into shape, so to say, including the companies as well as all the stakeholders.
On that note, thank you so much, Kunal. Thank you, Ranjeet. And thank you. Hoping to continue the conversation post. Yeah, thank you.